Hello and welcome to what technically should be day 2 of Linktober, but ended up being days 2 and 3, and I am now officially behind by a day. Today was your OC's town and or village, and well, I kinda went ham on the village, and backgrounds are not my forte. Because of this, I kinda, sorta, maybe took way too long on it. But you know what, it's okay. It's okay because I think it came out pretty nice. But also I don't think so because I've been staring at it for 2 whole days. And a total of 8.5 hours. It'll say 7.5 there, but I cut out about an hour of me just staring at the stupid thing. Because there are moments where I just kind of pause and I'd look at it for a bit and I'd think and plan and think, well, I could put this here, or I could put it there, or I could not. And there was a lot of that, a lot of getting distracted and trying to avoid it, because that's what I tend to do when I have something I do not want to do. And I ended up going through like 15 bags of Thai tea or something like that. I don't know, I'm probably exaggerating. But in the end, I initially wanted to do a lot more research on this and have the buildings inspired by some specific type of architecture, or maybe mix a couple together. In the end, I just kind of pulled things out of my brain and went with whatever it is. Because I was already starting to get tired by the time I finished the stones for the 2 pillars that hold up that arch thing, which I don't even know why I made it. I just kind of thought it was cool. The backstory I kind of made up in my head for it is that kind of arch thing is essentially what used to have the name of the village on it, but over time the paint wore off and no one could be bothered. As for what's in the village, we'll get there in a bit because I am sure that at 2:23 we are not there yet. But inside the village, what's visible is a total of, well, what I drew was a total of, let's see, 6 distinct structures. But of those 6, only 5 are visible. The first one is the closest structure, which I'm hoping you can see, but I highly doubt it. It's the closest structure, it's the most detailed. I really went to town with the tile work on it, or at least on the roof. That structure is where I developed most of the style for the village. I decided they would have red tile roofs, a little faded from the sun and whatnot. And then coming off the roofs, they'd have little golden orbs for no particular reason. And from there, they had essentially what they're supposed to be is not so much triangles, but little flat cones with the top cut off. And there are multiple of those, and as you will be able to see, I hope, from the first house, the one further back is a bit older because one of them is broken and the rope on it got retied. These essentially work like wind chimes, and in theory, the noise they make is supposed to warn off enemies, blah blah blah. All that good stuff. I also decided that, based off the rock color I chose for that arch, that there's a lot of lighter colored rocks here, so a lot of the buildings would be made of a lighter colored kind of stucco-y material. Because that just seemed to make sense for the area. As I kept designing, I found that I had a lot of open space and I didn't want to fill it. So that's when, after I made the second house, which is just generic little house, a little shed, a little garden, I hope of what looks like honeydew melons. I don't know. After I did that one, I was just mildly irritated. So I didn't want to make more houses, and I made another, which was another generic house with a well. But that one's not super important. what this all led to was that I made a stable in the back. Stable with several areas for horses. Because I decided, well, we're gonna have most of the town be off to the right, off screen, because I don't want to draw it. And we're also going to have it be a horse-based town, where a lot of the people who come through, they're looking for horses, and this area is renowned for their horses. So we've got a stable in the back there, clearly drew some inspiration from Breath of the Wild. And the wide open plains around it are just areas where there are horses commonly. I didn't think about actually drawing horses until later. Meanwhile, the other structures of interest are the one in the upper right. Again, I'm not sure if you can see it yet. But in the upper right, we have a little house with a path that leads up to what looks like a lighthouse. And yeah, that is a lighthouse, but it actually used to be a watchtower from a castle, is what I decided. And that's why it's actually in an area that's not near any water, really. Like, they're near water, but it's just a stream that flows through the middle of town. I just thought it would be a neat addition because I like having things up on a hill. And then, on the left side of the image, we have two houses. One with a round door, one with a square door, and the square door has a round window, and the round door has a square window, and there's a little tiny house between them. I decided that that house is owned by a pair of twins who lead the village. Their personalities are completely opposite, but they are identical twins. And they've got a dog. A little dog and a little cat. They are both the same size, and they both sleep together because they were raised together and got along. So they both sleep in that little house, though the cat's usually out and about roaming. So that's them. And that front house, I didn't want it to just be house TM, like the other two. So I decided that that one would become essentially my potion shop. Because I like the idea that, okay, horses, so we need something here. I kind of drew that little bodily thing because I could, but later on decided it would be a potion shop because that could also be like general store, get your items here kind of sign. But I wanted it to be a potion shop for one reason, and that's there in the plains between what looks like a water-filled area and a mountainous area, which I decided while trying to design the terrain around them, and it just seemed to fit. So, it makes sense that they have access to several different spices and herbs and whatnot to make different potions because they're sort of central, where they can access a lot of different resources, and from that make a bunch of potions, as well as sell them to people who are coming in to buy horses anyway, because if you're buying a horse, typically you're either going on an adventure or restocking or going through monster-filled territory typically. Especially if you want a horse specifically like this. But anyway. So that one's a potion shop. I also decided that the lighthouse keeper, I say that in quotes because it's not really a lighthouse and it doesn't super need keeping. But the lighthouse keeper is actually a young girl. She moved there from the Zora's domain. Of course, I don't have her designed, but she's currently moved back with her family. Well, not moved back, but she's visiting her family over in the Zora's domain, just for the time being. And because of that, she's going to be spared by what I draw tomorrow. That's going to happen to the village, which you can probably guess, but it's going to go boom. So, she's going to be a nice little connection for the main character there, as well as most likely his guide through the Zora's domain. Let's see, aside from that, oh right, there's a river that flows through town. It flows down from the mountains, and this mountain range is separate from Death Mountain. Initially I was thinking, okay, maybe this is a mountain range near Death Mountain. Then I decided, no, I do want this to be mountains, but not near Death Mountain. So I decided Death Mountain is assuming the way that we're looking is north, Death Mountain is south of here. So, Death Mountain is over there, and all the water from the river is supplied by, the ice on the mountaintops, and the rain coming off the mountains, yada yada. From there, just behind that first house, it's hard to see, I made a note of it, but I'm not sure if it passed by too quickly for people to see, but it actually falls down into a waterfall just below the twin leader houses thing. It falls down into a waterfall, and from there, it flows into a large lake, which eventually leads off toward the Zora's domain. I really should make a map based off this information, but I'm lazy. I'm sure I'll get around to it at some point. But that's the entirety of the village. I'm not sure what's over the hill behind it. I want to say it's probably beach or something. I don't know, like maybe beach, maybe desert, I don't know. Not sure what's behind it. In fact, I'm not even sure if the way we're looking it would properly be north. I don't like cardinal directions, but this took a long time. I regret putting tiles on the freaking buildings. I just regret a lot of things here. I'm hoping to make the other villages or towns or wherever he goes a lot more streamlined than this. Especially considering I took at least like an entire hour just blurring things to make it look like the camera was focused dead on that gate thingy. So that he was blurred out, the grass coming toward him was blurred out, as well as the fact that everything behind the gate was blurred out. You can't really see it too much, but even that first house, I blurred it ever so slightly. So, it's a lot. I also decided to try recording with something else, considering I lost that recording yesterday, 2 days ago, and I was not happy with that. So, back to OBS we go, even though the Xbox game bar does make it easy to record things. It just likes to crash on me, and then not save anything. So, that's that. I'm hoping that this next one should be relatively quick because I've got an idea of how I want to draw it, what I want to draw, and the majority of it is not backgrounds. I hate backgrounds. So, thankfully, it's mostly humanoid figures, so I can just kind of quote-unquote cheat with the 3D models, but honestly, I'm just using the 3D models in place of taking all the time to redesign it because you can't really see in this one, but the 3D models, you can change their proportions and whether or not they're thicker, if they're thinner, if they've got more weight on them, if they're skinny little twigs, if they're buff. You can just change absolutely everything. So, they're just pretty much my fun little shortcut to drawing any human, really. In fact, I tend to save different settings. I'm not saving the setting for our little hero here, just because he's a relatively simple setting. Make him a little skinnier, make him a little less buff, the end. That, and I'm probably going to buff him up a little bit as he goes through different trials, just because I feel like he would develop and, get a little more buff, lose a little weight, considering he's running for his life and wielding weapons, despite the fact that he was just a little farm boy. So, I think I've got everything handled. I think. Oh my god. I can't believe this took 7 hours and 2 days. I was hoping to at least start on the other one today, but no, it's after midnight. And here I am recording this audio. Man. I actually had to speed it up twice as fast as the last one, just to fit it in my limit of 10 to 20 minutes. So, well, enjoy the rest of the video. I am going to bed.